So this is where you got a 2,800-page bill, and it's like one revelation after another. When the bill passed, nobody knew that 1099 requirement was in the bill. Are you familiar with this? No. 1099 requirement, just quickly, the 1099 requirement, I'm smiling. I feel like Jimmy Carter announcing bad news. I shouldn't smile. The 1099 requirement is the requirement under this bill that is now the law, beginning on January 1st, that any business in the United States that does more than $600 worth of business with any other business, so in other words, you're the restaurant and you buy $600 worth of photocopies and stuff at Kinko's or whatever, at the end of the year, you have to send in a 1099 form to the federal government outlining and summarizing all the transactions that you've done. Now, think about that. When people are struggling to keep the doors open, when they're struggling to make payroll, when they're struggling to meet their health care costs, when they're struggling to meet their liability costs, now they've got an extra burden that they've got to chase down and report to the federal government. We did, on the Ways and Means Committee as Republicans, we did an analysis of that, and we found that the net effect is an increase of 16,000 Internal Revenue Service employees at a cost of $1 billion. Think about the nickel and dime stuff that everybody's going to have to chase down. Rodney Craig, the mayor of Hanover Park, you know, he's going to have to chase down every time they buy, you know, 5 trinkets from who knows who. Now at the end of the year, they're going to have to get that information in. It's that type of thing. So off the top of my head, I don't know the answer to the pre-existing condition question. If you shoot me an email, I got people for that, and we can get it to you pretty quickly. I think the larger question is how do you deal with pre-existing conditions? Because I kind of skipped by that. There are high-risk pools. So pre-existing conditions are difficult and complicated, and there's not an easy snap-your-finger remedy to this, and they're expensive. But I think ultimately we have all said, cumulatively, we've recognized during the course of this debate that pre-existing conditions ought not preclude somebody from coverage, right? It's just, we just kind of say, let's not have that happen. So here's how you do it. What you do, you don't start a whole gigantic new federal program. You fund these existing high-risk pools, and there's a way to sort of leverage them and insure them in such a way so that you keep the cost as low as possible. We have, for example, in the state of Illinois, a comprehensive health insurance program, CHIP. The CHIP program is a pretty decent program. Now the problem is, the CHIP program is not funded, and don't even get me going on the whole state thing, but the CHIP thing is not funded in the way that it should be. You fund those types of programs, you take a lot of the sting off of the pre-existing condition question.
Sonia Peters. I'm considering leaving private health care to Medicare, but because of Obamacare, I'm afraid of Medicare's future. Your opinion, please.
They're going to get you, Sonia, one way or another. They're going to get you. I mean, you know, and so I think what they're going to do on the healthcare end is they're truncating options. There's fewer choices that even the health carriers are able to offer based on the law. They have to grandfather in certain things. So there's less and less and less flexibility about what they're able to offer you. And so that's not really a safe place to stay. And Medicare is Medicare, and it's got all of its dramas. But and I'm not trying to be glib about the decision that you're making. If you've got some specific questions, though, let me know, and we really do have folks that can go through it and say, okay, this is for you a rational decision in the great scheme of things.
Hey, Janet from Bartlett. Raise your hand. Why are the W-2s changing by 2012, showing what companies pay for each employee for insurance premiums? Do I understand this correctly?
Well, so it's all part of the agenda, right? It's all part of this. Some of it has, and I've got to think that through a minute. Some of it may be due to some of these loss ratios that the insurance carriers are dealing with. Oh no, it has to do with the nature of the coverage that you're being compelled as an employer to offer. So if the federal government, I mean, you could have some coverage that you're offering as an employer, and your employees are happy as can be. Case in point, McDonald's, right? Remember the story from 2 or 3 weeks ago? McDonald's says to the federal government, we offer this kind of junior varsity coverage to about 30,000 employees. It's very cheap all the way around. I don't know, help me, it's like $16 a month or $16 a something, and it's $2,000 policy. So it's a de minimis thing, but the employees say, hey, it's helpful on the margins, and we'd like to keep this. Well, this didn't meet the gold standard, according to the federal government, and so it is as if the federal government is telling a company the nature of a car that they have to put a salesperson into. It would be like the federal government saying, well, you got to put them in the safest car in the world. If you're going to put an employee out on the highway, the safest car in the world. And the safest car in the world is, you know, something from Sweden probably. So it's probably a Volvo something, something, something. And you got to have the latest one with airbags up and down and all around. And that's going to be a $60,000 car, $60,000 car. Meanwhile, the business owner says, I can't afford a $60,000 car. I can afford a $20,000 Taurus with about, 40,000 miles on it or something. That's what I can afford. And the federal government says, no. It's either the safe car or no car. And so, you give the guy a Schwinn. That's how it all sorts out. In that same way, the federal government, I bet, is using that as a diagnostic tool to figure out if you're paying enough of sort of the component that you're supposed to pay for your employer, and they want to get that down, and they want to get it down where they nail you down on it. You know what I'm saying? They want more information.
Okay, it's 1:45.
All right, keep going.
Okay, he said that. Okay, this one is from Deborah Schultz from Carroll Stream. It's a long question. I'm going to ask only one part of it, the one that she started. The new healthcare legislation does not prohibit insurance companies from refusing coverage for pre-existing conditions until 2014. Would you be willing to present an amendment or bill to extend Cobra coverage until 2010 when all must be insured?
I'd have to really think that through and sort of look at the cost and the long-term impact on that, particularly as it relates to all these other things that we're going to be doing on healthcare. So what we don't want to do is create any more pressure of an upward cost nature on healthcare, because it will reach a breaking point. I'd be open to talking about it, but it would have to be talking about it in the context of all these other things that I said we're going to offer.
Hey, Jim Wojciechowski.